no one wants to manage databases if they can avoid it. That's why MongoDB made MongoDB Atlas, a global cloud database service that runs on AWS, GCP, and Azure. You can deploy a fully managed MongoDB database in minutes with just a few clicks or a few API calls. MongoDB Atlas automates deployment, automates updates, handles scaling, and more so that you can focus on your application instead of taking care of your database. You can get started free at mongodb.com/atlas. Now, if you're already managing a MongoDB deployment, Atlas has a live migration service, so you can migrate it easily with minimal downtime and then get back to what matters. Stop managing your database and start using MongoDB Atlas. Hi, this is Scott Hansel, and this is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm talking with Saron Yitbarek. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not
so much.
It doesn't feel like remote work anymore. I've done remote work for years. This is not the same thing.
Yeah, I feel bad because this is exactly the same thing for me.
Really? Like your life has not changed at all?
Not at all. Actually, so we were in San Diego for 2 years, and the reason why we moved is because we're back now, but we used to be in Jersey for 6 years. And then I left Microsoft to do CodeNewbie full time. And the argument for staying in Jersey was, oh, my network's in New York. Like I'm going to go to all these meetings and, network with people and go to all these events. And for that whole year, I think I left my apartment like a handful of times, like maybe outside of grocery shopping, maybe 10 times. Like it was negligible. And so we're like, well, I'm not really taking it. Like all the meetings that I have, even the ones in New York, are all virtual anyway. So we might as well be near a beach, if we're never going to leave the house anyway. So that's why we moved for 2 years. And so now that we are, back at it, it's not different for me. Like I'm home all day. I go to Trader Joe's once every 2 weeks. And that's, me, quarantine is just my regular life.
When you discover that your lifestyle is called quarantine.
Yeah, exactly.
You're the most introverted extrovert that I've ever known. You know what I mean? That's just amazing. Where do you go to recharge? You don't go outside to recharge.
I don't really. I sleep and I watch a lot of TV.
I like napping. I'm a fan.
Oh, I love napping. Oh, naps are the best. Now that, I had a real job for a very short amount of time. Then we had to get rid of that. And so now that I'm back to doing my own thing full time, my sleep schedule is just screwed. Like it is all over. I sleep at like 5 a.m. I wake up past noon and then I take a nap at 8. Like it's all over the place. But yeah, naps and TV are my recharge activities.
But you like that though. Like if I slept weird hours, like yesterday I was up until, 3 or 4 in the morning watching The Boys on, not The Boys, my children, but The Boys on Amazon.
Okay.
Although I tend to stay up late watching The Boys as well. But either way, I was up late and then I was like, all I could think about was like, oh, this is going to mess up my regular job.
Yeah.
And you're saying that doesn't mess anything up at all.
No. Also, I think you might be clipping a little bit.
Oh, clipping too hot?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
When you got loud, it showed.
That's okay. I got a new microphone.
Okay. Oh, what kind of microphone do you have?
Well, I'm actually going to keep all this in the show, by the way. I'm not editing any of this because this is all gold. I ran a Shure condenser mic for the longest. Is it condenser? Which one's the one that does phantom power? Condenser.
Condenser, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've got it plugged into this mixer. And I would always have to turn off the phantom power, the 75 volts of phantom power. And I go back and forth between microphones. And then I just finally bought the exact same Shure. I think this is like a Shure 45. So it's a dynamic mic.
Nice.
But I'm having trouble getting used to it because if I move my mouth away, I go over here, it's like completely gone. I disappear.
Yeah. You're not even
So I got to eat the mic. Yeah. But what's nice about it is now I can switch between this and my lavalier mic that I use for my YouTube, my burgeoning YouTube channel. I'm on YouTube. Follow me on YouTube. Yeah. Thank you for the audio tip. You are an audio expert because you have you use pillows and you insist that your guests use pillows.
Did I tell you about my very short-lived remote studio contraption that I built?
Oh my
with
goodness. You were
this.
mailing people studios?
I did it maybe a handful of times, and I was like, this is too expensive, and then I stopped. But I sewed these, there were these little walls, and they were made of this insulator material I found out about online that you can use to make like a real studio. And they're made for like the basement, like for insulation or something. They're made of this weird material where like you have to use gloves to use it, because otherwise you'll get like a ton of splinters. It's like this very strange, very uncomfortable material.
Sounds like fiberglass.
It's not fiberglass. It's something else.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called. But anyway, so I got that, and then I sewed little pillowcases for it. I had a whole thing, and I sent it out to a couple of people who still have them. But then it got too pricey, and I stopped doing it.
Yeah, I used to send out headphones. I think you did this too for a while. So
I did,
have like
and then
3 or
I have
4
mics now. Yeah.
Yeah, I have headphone packs, and I just mail them out. The problem is, I think it was Tiffany from the Detroit Water Project, and I'm calling her out, and she won't mind, but I think I mailed it to her in like 2016.
Never got back.
Well, I got it back a couple weeks ago, but no,
nice.
we did a show. The issue was we never actually did the show because life happened. Right?
Okay, yeah.
But that's the thing, right? Is balancing what's 80% good. You spent a lot of time getting that last 20% perfect, which is why you're you.
Yeah, we have mics that we mail out, $250 mics that we mail out. We have like 9 that are going around the country. I think we've lost maybe 1 in 3-4 years. Which
lost like absconded or lost like lost?
We never got it back. We don't know. We know that we are down a mic. That's what we know. So either it's hidden somewhere in my apartment or just never got mailed back to us. I don't know which one it is.
Got to put a label maker on that. Something.
Yeah, we did, and then I just got lazy. Like it went on for like 2 years where it was never an issue, and then I got lazy about tracking it, and I was like, whatever. And then we went down a mic. But
see, now I want to solve that technical problem. Like I want to like embed a tile.
That's true.
Bluetooth tracker inside.
Rob suggested that. He was like, "Why don't you just put a tile in there?" And I was like, "Nah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm very good at not solving my own problem." As Rob says, I don't solve. I'm very fine living with my own problems. So I'm very lazy.
This is actually a good and bizarre segue because I feel like I'm good at getting 80%, like 80% quality, 85, B plus.
Yeah,
with a
great.
I'm just saying, I appreciate you in a general sense.
Okay.
In general production of stuff, whether it be code or whatever, I can. And this has been my whole life because my college counselor said when I got my SAT scores, "Oh, you've just been sitting around, and then you decided to bring it for the test." And it was very painful. It cut very deep because they knew, because I'd been putting in 25% effort to get 85%. benefit, right? It's like just minimal effort and you get a B plus. Because it never really felt like a good idea to me to put the extra 80% of the work in.
That's fair. I get that. Yeah.
Okay. But I'm gonna call you out and compliment you at the same time. This is not a backhanded compliment. This is a front-handed compliment, if that's a thing. I think that's a good thing. I'm not sure.
No idea what you're gonna say. Okay.
So when you started podcasting back in the day, and I would watch through social media, through text messages from you, your experiments to hide in the closet and record, to do portable vocal booths, to try to find the microphones and stuff like that. I remember, I don't know if you remember this, I remember arguing, it's probably fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
And you were like, fine, it's not good enough. This is my Saron impression. Fine, it's not good enough. I want to do it amazing. And that's what I think is so wonderful about you, why I think you're so successful with CodeNewbie before you sold that to Dev, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a speaker, as a podcaster. You will not accept B+.
I think for the most part, you're right. I think there's also just specific things that I care a lot about. And audio quality is one of those things that I think makes, at least to me, makes a difference between a podcast I take seriously and a podcast that I think is like some random guy in his mom's basement. Like, to me, that's a differentiator. And I feel like...
attacked.
Whatever. We all know you have a great audio setup and your audio quality is you have a mixer, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
My levels are not as good as yours, but I do okay.
Yeah, no, you do great. But like when I listen to other shows and I listen to just the first 30 seconds and I hear the noise and the echo, I just get so turned off. It doesn't matter to me how good the interview is. I just get very turned off. And I don't want people to, reject the quality of work that I do for every other part of the show just because I have a crappy mic. You know what I mean? Like that to me is just awful. So that's why I'm a very huge stickler for that sort of thing. But I let loose sometimes. Depends on what it is.
I started this YouTube channel that I'm very proud of because it's gonna be how I retire. I'm gonna get that YouTube money.
Yeah, get that YouTube money.
Get that YouTube money. I got like $12 last month. It's huge. And like I get all this like positive feedback. I'm addicted to the positive feedback.
Oh, it's great.
There's always that one down arrow or whatever. But then someone was like, I'm tired of your smacky mouth lip noise. And it's like, what do I do with that? Like, I mean, I don't know if this person is listening to me with studio microphones in a studio.
Yep.
I can't, like I've thought about, there's no smacky mouth filter.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Can I tell you 2 stories about smacky mouth filters?
Yes.
Okay, so the first one, I was at Podcast Movement, which I think, I don't know if you've been there before, but I think I told you about it some years ago. Maybe it was like 2016. I went there. It was my first time going. And there, when I went to this session with this woman, I think she was from NPR. I don't remember her job title, but she was like a big deal at NPR. She was like head of something, VP of something. And I remember going to her session and just hearing jingle. Like it just sounded like jewelry. And I remember thinking, what is that weird noise? And it only happened when she started speaking. And eventually I was like, oh my God, that's her mouth. Her mouth is making this really weird, obnoxious, jingly, jewelry sounding noise. And I was like, what is that? And someone said to me, they're like, that's called mouth noise. And I was like, oh my God, that's the name for that thing. Blew me away just how loud mouth noise can be. That's my first story. My second story. So Rob and I were experimenting with Rob's my husband. So we're experimenting with different mics and we bought cheap mics, expensive mics. We just wanted to see what the difference was, right? So we got the most expensive mic. I think it was like $1,000. We got the most expensive mic we could find. Maybe it was over $1,000. And we set it all up. We bought the boom and the filter and we bought all the stuff. We hooked it all up and we were recording. And there was this really strange creaking sound that it kept picking up. And at first I was like, oh, maybe I'm like rocking in my chair. Like maybe that's what it is. So I stood very still, recording, and there was again this weird like creaking like a pop. And I was like, what is this weird noise? And eventually we realized the noise was coming from my mouth. I had really bad mouth noise. And because that mic was particularly sensitive, it picked it up in a way that my cheap $40 mics never picked up. And that's what's wrong with my mouth. So, yeah.
Wow.
Mouth noise is very real.
Well, now I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do about it.
There's nothing you can do about it. There's like nothing.
Awkward...
Well, okay. I've heard, what have I heard? I've heard people say like eat a bag of chips because the oil from the chips will like lubricate your mouth or something, which to me doesn't really make sense because then you have chips in your teeth. Like you have like, you know what I mean? Like you.
Well, not to mention the carbs. Totally unnecessary carbs.
Too. I've heard not to drink water because water will like dry out your mouth and make it worse. So I've heard that. I think I've heard someone say like eat an apple or something. So I've read like, because I Google it, I've read like weird, things to do, but mouth noise is very real and it's a hard problem out here.
Figuring the leveling out has been awful because this leveling is decent and I think that I level okay. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you saying that I was overdriving there for a second. And then Mandy, my editor, who's fantastic and is available for editing your podcast, if anyone's listening, does a great job of leveling it out and making everyone sound good. But then I put it out on YouTube, which apparently has entirely different leveling rules.
Oh,
and
really?
This show sounds fine. And on YouTube, I'm like silent.
Oh, wow.
And every once in a while, and like someone literally sent me a picture of like my podcast next to my YouTube with like the waveform.
Yeah.
And they're like, this sucks. So now I have to figure out on my mixing board presets and I don't have a way to do presets. So I have to like take a photograph of the mixing board with the knobs the way I want them.
Mm-hmm.
and then I just put the knobs that way for each medium.
Yeah.
And then that's almost enough work to make me just go, forget it. I don't want to do a YouTube video.
Wow. Oh, that's so disappointing.
It is awful. Hey friends, I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Text Control. They're not only the creator of the fully featured document editor library for .NET and Angular apps, but their libraries also have powerful PDF functionality. So you don't have to program PDF documents. You can make MS Word templates and then merge them with data, and that'll let you create pixel-perfect PDF and PDF/A documents. The best part is fillable form elements like text boxes and checkbox fields and drop-down elements, and you can add those easily to your PDFs and make filling out forms really simple for your users. And don't forget, TX Text Control gives developers a complete solution to handle PDF documents in any business process. So check it out. You can try it free. See the live demos at textcontrol.com/demos. It's just that easy. textcontrol.com/demos. You, on the other hand, because this is about you, have a wonderful new thing. This is your new entrepreneurial company.
It's my new
baby.
baby.
Called Disco. It's at heydisco.com. I don't know how you got that URL. That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it was so hard to get a disco-related URL. Everything was taken. I was like, well, what about like, hey, hi, and that one was available.
So there are all kinds of courses out there. There's Masterclass, and there's Pluralsight, and there's all these different Netflixes of learning technical things. But you're making these kind of easy digest audio courses. They're not a podcast. They're not a radio, but there's no screencast. This is meant for walking and living and learning at the same time.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. That's exactly the idea. I feel like when it comes to how we learn, we have so many options that are screen-based, right? We have, whether it's blog posts, it's tutorials, it's video, everything, almost everything we have that is an educational resource requires you sitting at your laptop or, sitting in front of your phone and watching something. And there are very, very few resources that can be done mobily, that can be done on the go. And podcasts, can be a potential source for education, but that's not what they're made for. Like at the end of the day, podcasts are usually made for entertainment. Maybe they're made for like news information, but you kind of learn by accident. It's like the side effect of listening to a podcast is learning. And so I was thinking, well, what happens if you take this amazing, intimate, really powerful medium of audio, and if you design something specifically optimized for education, really optimized for learning, what does that look like? What does that feel like? So that's the experiment that I test out. I think it's been like 2 months since I did that first experiment. And I tweeted out and I said, hey, what do y'all want to learn about? Gave a couple options. Number one voted on option was machine learning. And I said, cool, first course is going to be on machine learning. And I did the first course and I had about 40 people beta test it, or beta listen to it, I should say. And my goal was to answer a very simple question of, is this even a thing that people are interested in, right? Like, was anyone interested in this idea of learning through audio? But there's also kind of a secondary question of, can I do a good job of creating audio for education? Like, am I the person to execute on that idea? Mm-hmm. And people loved it. I went through many iterations. I rewrote the scripts, a bunch of times. I mixed it differently. But that final version that I sent out to everyone got really, really high scores, and people really, really loved it. And they said, I can't wait for the next one. And I said, okay, great. So people are interested and I can do a good job doing this. And so that led to my next question. Okay, great. They like it when it's free, but is anyone willing to actually pay for it? Is that, can this become an actual business? And so for that, I said, I'm going to sell a little bundle. I'm going to put, a bunch of courses together. And it's going to be early access, and I'm going to give myself 3 weeks, and I'm going to cross my fingers and hope I can get 50 people. That was my goal. So I'm going to get 50 people. I'm going to convince them that they will give me money for this thing. And I think by the end of the second day, I had over 100 people sign up. And by the end of the 3-week period, I had almost 500 people give me money to take courses that have not been created yet based on a 3-minute sample. And that's when I was like, oh my God, this is a thing. Like there's a chance that this is a real thing. And so I've onboarded all those people and they're currently listening to the course, and I'm just, crossing my fingers, waiting for feedback.
Wow. So right now you've got a monthly $15 a month, 2 audio courses a month, and then you've got a one-time 8 audio courses. But you have just the one course right now, or are there
just the
more
one
courses?
Yeah, no, there's one course on machine learning that's currently available, and we're basically releasing the audio courses as we create them. So the next one will be out next week, and then we'll have one out 2 weeks after that. And the idea is to learn and create at the same time. So, what I don't want to happen is for me to upfront create 8 audio courses, realize that I didn't approach it the right way. My audience wants less music, more examples, just being able to do it blindly didn't seem like a good idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm hoping happens with kind of giving myself 2 weeks to build out the next course is to get feedback in between, right? And ask people, great, so at the end of every course, I ask people to give me, the net promoter score. Would you recommend this to a friend on a scale of 1 to 10? And then they have a little place where they can leave comments. And for the people who give me, below a 9, I'm going to reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed you gave this a 5. Tell me why. What can I do to be better? How do I make this stronger for you? And using that information to produce the next course even better. So really being able to iterate and being able to learn and build, doing just what we do when we build software, right? We do customer interviews, we do user feedback, and we build, we don't build, or we shouldn't, I should say, build all the features up front. We build as we go. So that's the idea with doing the courses. But eventually I'm hoping to cover other topics. So the next topic that I have in mind is cryptocurrency, which was one of the popular topics. And it's one of those things that people think they should know about, but don't actually understand. It's in the news. It's always out there. People are talking about it. I kind of thought it would go away like a couple of years ago, but I don't think it's going to go away for a while. And I think it's something people are genuinely curious about. And so, doing a couple courses, another bundle on cryptocurrency, and, trying to sell that and see how people react to that. And eventually, going on to doing different technical topics. And, hopefully if this gets big enough, if it reaches more people, I'd love to do topics beyond technology, right? When I did another poll on Twitter, history was like the number 2 most popular subject. It was technology, then it was history. And it was very, very close. And so how do you do history optimized for learning? What does that look like? How do you teach psychology? How do you teach different social sciences? How do you teach science topics? How do you teach biology? There's just so many things that we can explore through audio. And I'm really excited to go on that journey.
Wow. So there's a lot to parse there. Let me back up just a little bit, because
Sure.
in this show comes out in 10 days in the future, which is September 17th. So you said next week. So what show has just came out last week?
Yeah, so last week was a gentle introduction to machine learning. So that was the very first course. It is just under an hour long. It's broken up into 9 lessons. Each lesson is under 10 minutes. So again, trying to create, really digestible content, trying to make it really easy to listen to, and, kind of going from there.
And then the machine learning bundle gives you like 10 hours of content across a ton of courses, plus transcripts and supplemental PDFs. So you get a lot there.
You get a lot. Yeah. And the idea is, we're optimizing everything to be audio first. So screen-free learning is the priority. But it's also helpful to look at something once in a while, right? After we go through an algorithm, after we describe a particular equation, it's helpful just to take a glance and look down at it. So making sure we're giving people all the tools that they can use to really maximize their learning.
And then course number 2 is cryptocurrency?
Topic number 2 is going to be cryptocurrency. Yeah. So that's going to come out hopefully in the next month. I'm actually hiring a producer. I'm hiring 2 producers. Hopefully by the time this comes out, they will have been hired and have started working. But they're going to be working on cryptocurrency the same time that I'm working on machine learning. So we'll be able to tackle both topics.
Interesting. How are you separating? You just you corrected me, and I said course and you said topic. What's your taxonomy for how you refer to these?
Yeah, so we have the machine learning bundle, which is the machine learning topic, right? And then in the bundle, we have 8 courses. So similarly for cryptocurrency, it'll be a bundle. And then within that, we'll have maybe 5 to 8 courses underneath that.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So let me ask you a tough question because I have this problem myself.
Ooh.
And hopefully you won't be offended.
Okay.
How are you qualified to teach these things?
Ooh.
I think about
that's a
that
great
when I
question.
do my YouTube. Like, I'm not trying to, someone might be like, no, but like, I think that's a reasonable, question because it's courseware,
That's
right?
totally
And I always
reasonable.
feel paranoid when I do my own YouTube. And
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, I don't know if I'm the person.
Absolutely.
What if I do it wrong?
Yeah, so I'm trusting a couple things. Number one is I'm trusting myself that I can research this topic, fact check this topic, and get it expert approved, right? So for that first introduction, the general introduction to machine learning, luckily there are tons of resources, free videos, blog posts out there that I can learn from. But there's also white papers and proper scientific journals that I read to really make sure I understood the depth of these equations and these topics. But I also, sent it out to, I think it's at least 5 machine learning experts and said, hey, this is what I'm about to put out there. What do you think? Do you see any issues? Do you see any problems? And kind of got, the check light, the green light from them to proceed and put it out there. So I'm trusting, it's kind of the same question as like, how do you trust a reporter, right? If you think about, for example, Discover Magazine, the people who write those articles are not scientists, they're journalists. And you trust that they are doing their research, doing their homework, they're asking the experts, they're getting everything fact checked, and you're really trusting journalists. Journalists are not, by definition, experts in the things that they write. The longer you stay on a beat, the more knowledgeable you are, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a published author, right? You're not a physicist professor or anything like that. You're a person who's really, really curious. And so I'm kind of trusting this history of what journalism is, what reporting is, and how telling a story has been done historically, where it's been finding people who are insanely curious, who are really, really thorough researchers, and who are able to present complex topics in really interesting ways. So that's the model that I'm following.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a really good answer.
Thank you.
Because that kind of makes Bill Nye is the Saron Yitbarek of science.
I'm very okay with that analogy.
Yeah. So it's almost, and I think about other things like, Ira Flato on Science Friday and my favorite NPR reporters. To your point, they don't have a PhD in the thing,
right,
but they do put far more research
yes,
than I'm willing to put into. Like exactly. I can read a few things, but I don't know if I'm reading the right things. You're doing all that for us and fact checking and double checking with experts and assembling, producing, double fact checking, reviewing, updating. And then when we join, I'm hearing you say that we get to offer feedback and perhaps get revisions if something were found to be suboptimal.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I haven't implemented yet just because I haven't had the time, but I want to do in the next couple of weeks is put together a first listener program where I'll invite my my early access users and I'll say, hey, if you're interested in hearing essentially like the first version of the audio course, and you'll hear it a week before everyone else, and you're willing to give me feedback, let me know what's confusing, what's not confusing, and help us make, the final version of the lesson. I'm going to open that up, as an invitation to people. Because one thing that I was really surprised and really excited about was seeing how people genuinely wanted to be a part of the journey. All the beta listeners who, I DM them, I don't know how many dozens and dozens of times saying like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And you just got so much. And I felt frankly like a little guilty. I was like, oh man, I'm really asking so much of these people. But they all said to me, they're like, oh no, this is great. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of it. Like we get to be behind the scenes and we get to help you build out this brand new thing. And so I'm hoping that there's, a nice core of people out there who will be my first listeners who are just as excited to kind of build this along with me to be the guinea pigs really for this content and make the final version even stronger and more exciting.
Do you get overwhelmed at all with the potential edits? Sometimes like you want to move things around. It's like editing a long form document or like a thesis, but with audio, it's a lot harder. You can't just copy paste and move things around and have it flow the way you want it to flow. No,
editing is usually just a rewrite. It's usually, I remember the very, very first version of this course that I created was 22 minutes long. And before I sent it out to my beta listeners, I had just like my closest friends listen to it. And they all came back to me and they were like, Saron, we have a headache. Like this hurts. They were just was like, this hurts our brains. It's way too much information. It's too compact. We have no idea what you're talking about. And I had to break it up and kind of extend it to be an hour-long course and really have some more analogies and more examples. And so I've learned that when people give me edits, usually it's not a simple cut and paste. It's not, oh, let me just move this one sentence around. It usually means I need to re-explain a concept or approach it in a different way or add a new example. So it's definitely humbling. It's very, very humbling. I've had to check my ego many, many times. I've had to put things out there and just say to myself, okay, this is probably going to suck. They're probably going to have a lot of complaints, but that's what you signed up for. They're going to help you improve, and just really, just be really, really open-minded.
That is really hard to do. Sometimes it's hard because you're basically saying, in order for you to be successful in this venture, you have to read the comments.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And we're told not to read the comments.
Yep. Yeah. I have to read all the comments and the other thing that's also interesting is I not only have to read the comments, but I have to decide which comments to listen to, because not all feedback is, feedback that you should incorporate into whatever it is that you're building. So one thing I got into with one of my experts actually is there's this concept of W0, also called the bias in machine learning. And to understand where the bias comes from, you need a lot of math. There's like a lot of equations that go into it. And it's just totally unnecessary to understand how it's derived to explain what machine learning is. It's a nice to have. It's an appendix, it's a sidebar. It's not important to understanding the actual concepts. And so in the audio course, I say, we have this idea called the bias. It's not important. It's a lot of math. So just, know that it's there, and we're going to explain how it's used. And I got into, I won't call it an argument. I'll say a difference of opinion with my expert, where he was like, no, you have to explain it, and it's really important. And I was like, but it's not important though. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna overcomplicate things. It's gonna scare people. It's not important. And ultimately it was my call, so I didn't include it. But there are these moments where people will give you and have very strong opinions, and you have to ultimately decide, what's best for you and what you think is best for your users.
It's hard also to decide, like, what am I doing here? Am I doing a survey course at the community college level? Like, how they always say that the average newspaper should be written and readable at an eighth grade level.
Yep.
Well, what does that even mean? What is an eighth grade level? You have to decide. I assume you've decided your voice, your tone, your tempo, and your assumptions about what they already know.
Yeah, sort of. That's something that with the producers that I hire, I'm hoping we'll kind of figure that out as a team, and I think it'll evolve and kind of depend on feedback. The first course, A Gentle Introduction to Machine Learning, is really easy because it's called A Gentle Introduction to Machine Learning, right? So there's, zero assumed knowledge. You don't know what an algorithm is. You don't know what a model, you know nothing. I think the part where it gets a little bit more complicated is in the other courses. For example, I'm going to be doing a course on autonomous vehicles and how decision matrix algorithms are used, or one of the many things that are used in how autonomous vehicles work. And so at that point, I have to go, okay, do I assume they listened to that very first course? Do I assume that they, like, how much exactly do I need to kind of go back and re-explain in this? It's not exactly a fully beginner course. It's a little bit closer to intermediate, right? So how much can I assume that they know? So in the introductory courses that are explicitly introductory, it's easy. When we're going a step deeper and trying to get into, frankly, more interesting topics, that's going to be hard to kind of make the decision and figure out how elementary do I want to make this. So, when I don't know, I err on the side of beginner, just because, that even if it's at the beginner level, it's still helpful to more advanced people. And also because, frankly, more people are beginners than they are, intermediate and experts. So it makes sense to go after that crowd. But I think it's going to be a little bit trickier the more interesting the topics become.
Very cool. So folks can go and check this out at heydisco.com. They can also do the first lesson free, just with their first name and their email, and you'll send them one to check out. They can commit to it, or they can do the monthly. There's lots of choices. And of course, you've got a 60-day money-back guarantee. That's right. Because you're you and you're awesome.
Hopefully it's a really easy decision to just try it out. Try it out, see if you like it. And if not, that's totally cool.
Very cool. People are going to look back on this website, and they're going to say, and this is like Gimlet Media or Netflix or whatever.
That's what I'm hoping for.
And it's going to be a thing, and it's going to be like Salman Khan will look and say, Saron did it better.
That would be the dream. That'd be amazing.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.